In the silent stretch of deep space where stars blinked like distant memories, a lone ship drifted, its hull scarred and dark, its engines cold. The vessel named Duskwing, once a pride of the Kalian fleet, now floated like a ghost, its royal pilot, the last of her line, fighting not enemies but exhaustion. Zara of House. Kale sat slumped in the command throne, her silver eyes dull with fatigue, her long dark hair tangled and loose around her shoulders. The ship's emergency lights cast long shadows across her face as she listened to the groans of dying metal outside the bridge. The battle had ended 3 days ago, but the war inside her raged on. She had lost everything: her crew, her honor, her future, all because she chose not to fire on a small, human colony ship that played a child's song over open comms, a simple piano tune. No threat, just beauty. And for that single moment of hesitation, her entire fleet turned on itself, caught in a human-made resonance pulse that scrambled Kalian, neural links like static through a dream. Now she was alone. Oxygen low power failing and no hope of rescue. The Kalian Empire branded her a traitor for showing mercy, and the humans she spared would never know. She still lived. Her fingers trembled as she tried to reroute auxiliary power through the main conduit again. Sparks flew and she jerked back, hissing in pain. But she did not stop. She could not stop if she did. The ship would die, and with it the last spark of something new. Something different. Then a soft chime broke the silence. A small craft approached on the view screen, a battered human freighter, its hull patched with mismatched plates and one engine sputtering smoke. It moved slow and cautious like an animal testing thin ice. Zara's hand hovered over the weapons console, but there was nothing left to fire, even if she wanted to, which she did not. She watched as the freighter matched her drift and extended a docking arm with surprising care. The airlock cycled with a hiss that sounded too loud in the quiet ship, and then footsteps echoed down the corridor. A woman stepped onto the bridge, tall, with sunburned skin and wild red hair tied back in a messy braid. Her coveralls were stained with oil, and her boots scuffed from years of hard work. She carried no weapon, only a dented thermos and a small med kit. "You must be Zara," the woman said, her voice rough but calm. "I'm Claire." Zara did not move. "You should not be here." Claire set the thermos down on a console and twisted. The lid off, steam curled into the cold air. "Smells like chicken soup. My grandma's recipe, not much, but better than ship rations." Zara's stomach growled, but she kept her face still. "I do not accept help from humans." "You're not accepting help from just any human," Claire said, stepping closer. "You're accepting it from the engineer who built the resonance device on the Orion colony ship, the one you spared." Zara finally looked up. "How did you find me?" "I tracked your distress signal after the battle. I knew you might still be alive. If anyone could survive that mess, it'd be the pilot who listened to a 12-year-old song instead of blowing her to dust." Zara looked away, shame hot in her chest. "That choice cost me everything." "Maybe," Claire said softly, "or maybe it gave you something better." Zara said nothing. Claire walked over to the main console and tapped a few keys. The screen flickered to life, showing critical system failures. Life support at 12%, oxygen recycler offline, navigation array damaged. "You've been patching this with spit and hope, haven't you?" Zara nodded. "Well, hope's good, but let's add some skill to it." Claire opened her toolkit and pulled out a multi-tool. "You rest, I'll work." For the first time in days, Zara let her shoulders drop just a little. Over the next few hours, Claire moved through the ship like she'd lived there for years. She crawled through access tunnels, rerouted power from non-essential systems, and welded cracked conduits with steady hands. Zara watched from the bridge, amazed at how the human turned broken parts into working ones with nothing but grit and cleverness. "You fly this thing with your mind?" Claire asked later as she wiped grease from her hands. "Yes," Zara replied. "It reads neural patterns. Only those with high mental discipline can control it. So you're like a living extension of the ship." In a way, Claire smiled. "Then no wonder it's still running. You've got the strongest will I've ever seen." Zara looked at her. "Why are you really here?" Claire leaned against the console, her expression turning serious. "Because the Empire is hunting you. They've put a bounty on your head, bigger than any I've seen, and because you showed mercy when you didn't have to. That matters. Mercy got my people killed. Mercy kept mine alive," Claire said gently. "And maybe it's time someone showed the Kalians that war isn't the only answer." Zara was silent for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the observation Deck Claire followed. Outside, the gas giant loomed huge and silent, its swirling clouds glowing faintly in the starlight. My world had two suns, Zara said quietly. They rose together every morning, painting the sky in gold and violet. The air smelled like blooming night bells, and the rivers sang as they flowed over crystal stones. Claire listened, eyes soft. Earth has oceans, Claire said, miles and miles of water so big you can't see the end, and forests where the trees are older than cities. We've got storms that light up the sky and quiet mornings where the whole world feels like it's holding its breath. Zara turned to her. I have never seen an ocean. You will, Claire promised. They worked side by side after that, Zara teaching Claire the basics of Kalian systems, Claire showing Zara how to fix a leak with duct tape and patience. They shared meals of rehydrated stew and stories of their pasts. Zara spoke of royal training and rigid duty. Claire talked about growing up in a spaceport town, fixing ships before she could read one evening as they tested the repaired oxygen recycler. Claire asked, "What will you do if we get this ship flying again?" Zara looked out the viewport at the endless stars. "I will find others like me, those who question the Empire's endless war. I will build something new. Not with weapons, but with understanding." Claire nodded. "Then I'm coming with you. You do not have to." "I know," Claire said, "but I want today's past." And the ship slowly came back to life. Lights brightened, corridors warmed, and the hum of engines returned like a heartbeat restarting. Finally, the day came when the main drive responded to Zara's thoughts again. She sat in the neural throne, eyes closed as data flowed through her mind. Claire stood at the human-style console she'd installed just in case. "Ready?" Claire asked. "Ready," Zara replied. They launched from the dead moon's shadow, the Duskwing shaking off its grief like dust as it climbed toward the stars. Claire gripped the controls, her knuckles white but her voice steady. "What now?" "Now we run," Zara said, "but not forever." They punched into warp space, the stars stretching into lines of light behind them. For a while, there was only silence and the soft hum of the ship. Then the alert sounded. 3 Kalian destroyers dropped out of warp ahead, blocking their path, their weapons charging, their comms blaring with threats. "Surrender, traitor," came the voice of Admiral Vorlak, Zara's former mentor. "You have shamed your bloodline." Zara stood tall. Claire, beside her. "I have not shamed it," Zara replied. "I have redefined it." "What do we do?" Claire whispered. Zara linked the ship's systems to Claire's console, sharing control not as a Kalian would, but as equals. "Trust your hands," she said. Together they wove through enemy fire. Not to destroy but to confuse, they overloaded shields with feedback loops, jammed comms with Lily's piano song, and used the Duskwing's agility to slip through gaps. No warship should fit. The destroyers faltered, their rigid programming unable to handle an enemy that refused to fight back with violence. In that moment of confusion, Zara and Claire vanished into a nearby nebula, the gas and dust swallowing them whole. As the ship sailed deeper into the colorful clouds, Claire let out a shaky breath. "We did it." "No," Zara said softly. "We started it." Ahead lay danger, uncertainty, and the long road of building something new. But for the first time, Zara did not feel alone. She had a friend, a partner, and a reason to keep flying, and far behind them in the cold dark, a single Kalian pilot listened to a child's song on a broken channel and wondered if there was another way. The Duskwing sailed on, not as a weapon, but as a whisper of hope, carrying two women who believed kindness could change the stars. Life in the Vale moved at its own quiet rhythm. No alarms, no Empire patrols, just the hum of shared survival, and the slow work of building something that did not need to conquer to exist. Zara and Claire settled into a routine that felt more like home than either had known in years. They lived aboard the Duskwing still, but docked now to Station Echo, a sprawling lattice of salvaged hulls and repurposed cargo modules that spun gently in the void. Zara spent her mornings tending the seed. It had taken root in a chamber lined with reclaimed solar panels and recycled water lines, its glow now steady like a second heartbeat. The sky tree saplings stretched thin blue leaves toward the artificial sun and hummed softly when Zara sang the old Kalian lullabies her mother once whispered in the crystal spires. Claire worked with the station's engineers rebuilding life support systems and teaching human tricks, like using coffee grounds to clean filters, or how to tell a failing capacitor. By the smell of burnt sugar, she wore grease on her cheeks and a smile that came easier now than it had in years. They were not alone. Others came to them drawn by the story of the princess who chose mercy and the engineer who turned songs into shields. A former Kalian archivist named Torin brought data crystals filled with lost histories of peace not war. A human medic named Luna shared seeds from Earth that grew in low light and gave off oxygen like tiny green lungs, and a young pilot named Rico with cybernetic eyes and a laugh like static taught Claire how to fly through asteroid storms using only sound. But peace in the Veil was fragile rumors spread through the comms channels. The Empire was changing, not weakening but shifting its tactics, no longer sending brute force fleets but infiltrators. Spies and false refugees, they offered aid that carried hidden trackers. They whispered promises of amnesty to those who would betray the Veil's location. Zara felt the change in the air like a storm before it breaks. One evening, as she and Claire walked the outer ring of Station Echo, watching the gas giant swirl in the distance, Claire said, "They're coming, aren't they?" Zara nodded. "Not with ships this time, with Lieso." "What? Do we do not hide," Zara said. "We show them that truth is stronger than fear." The next day, Zara called a gathering in the central hub, a wide-open space once a cargo bay now filled with mismatched chairs and hanging gardens grown from a dozen worlds. She stood before the crowd not in royal robes but in simple gray coveralls. Her silver eyes calm. "I was taught that strength meant silence. That emotion was a flaw, that mercy was failure," she began. "But I have learned that true strength is choosing to care even when it hurts." She held up the skytree sapling, its leaves shimmering with soft light. "This is not a weapon. It is a promise. A promise that life can grow even in the darkest places, if we protect it together." A murmur ran through the crowd. Then Torin stepped forward. "I have found something in the old archives, a Kalian treaty from before the wars. It speaks of the Veil, not as a lawless zone but as a sanctuary protected by all who pass through it." Luna added, "We can use the earth seeds to grow sensor vines. They'll detect hidden tech by taste. And I can rig the station's comms to broadcast real stories, not propaganda." Rico said, "Not just ours, but everyone's." Claire looked at Zara and smiled. "We build a shield. Not of metal, but of truth." They worked for days, turning the station into something new. Gardens of sensor vines wrapped around docking arms. Data projectors displayed real-time stories of refugees, healers, and builders, not soldiers. The skytree's hum was woven into the station's comms, so every transmission carried its quiet song. Then the infiltrators came. 3 ships arrived claiming to be refugees. Their hulls scarred, their comms filled with static and sorrow. They asked for shelter, for repairs, for time. To Health the Veil's council debated, but Zara said, "Let them in." Claire frowned. "Are you sure? If we turn them away out of fear, we become what we fight." Zara replied, "So they opened the gates." The newcomers moved quietly at first, helping with repairs, sharing food, asking questions. But the sensor vines turned red near their quarters, and the skytree's hum grew sharp and warning. That night, Claire found a hidden emitter in one of the repair kits, small enough to fit in a palm, but powerful enough to map the entire station and send the data back to the Empire. "We have to act fast." Claire sighed. Zara shook her head. "No, we let them send it. What they expect us to react with force or fear." Zara said, "But we will give them something they cannot weaponize: truth." So, they did nothing. They let the emitter broadcast everything: the gardens, the stories, the skytree's song, the children playing in zero gravity, the old man teaching Kalian poetry to human kids. The shared meals, the laughter days passed, and the infiltrators grew uneasy. Their reports came back not with coordinates for bombardment, but with confusion. The Empire Command did not know what to do with a place that offered no enemy, only openness. Then one of the infiltrators, a young Kalian named Kalen Broke, came to Zara in the garden, his hands shaking. "I was told you were traitors, monsters hiding behind lies, but all I see is people trying to live." Zara looked at him. "You are not your orders." "I don't want to be part of this anymore," he whispered. "Then stay." She said he did. His defection sent ripples through the Empire, but more importantly, it gave the Veil its first real victory, not through battle but through choice. Weeks turned into months, the veil grew stronger. More ships arrived, not just refugees, but builders, teachers, artists, people who had heard the broadcasts and believed in the song. Zara and Claire stood one evening on the observation deck watching a new ship dock, its hull painted with stars and flowers. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Claire asked. "Sometimes," Zara said, "but home is not a place, it is the people who see you and stay." Claire leaned her head on Zara's shoulder. "Then I'm home." But the Empire was not done. A massive signal burst echoed across the sector. Not a threat, but an invitation. The Emperor himself would host a summit on neutral ground to discuss peace. All were welcome. Even traitors. The veil was divided. Some said it was a trap. Others said it was a chance. Zara knew it was both. She looked at Claire. "What do you think?" Claire sighed. "If we don't go, they win by making us afraid. If we go, we might not come back." "Then we go," Zara said, "because someone has to show them that peace is not weakness." They prepared quietly, no fanfare, no speeches, just the two of them and the sky. Tree sapling now strong enough to travel. They left Station Echo in the dusk wing, its hull newly painted with symbols from a dozen worlds. The summit was held on a dead moon, once a battlefield, now covered in white flowers planted by unknown hands. The air was thin but breathable and the sky clear, imperial. Guards lined the path, their armor gleaming but their eyes hollow-eyed. The center stood Emperor Voran, tall and severe, his face carved from stone and old grief. "Princess Zara," he said, "you return." "Never left my people," Zara replied. "I only left your war." He studied her, then nodded to a chair. "You may speak." She did not sit. Instead, she held up the sky tree, its leaves glowing softly in the pale light. "This is what we protect, not territory, not power, but life." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "That is a relic of a dead world. It is a seed of a new one," Zara said, "and it grows because we chose to water it with kindness, not blood." Silence fell heavy and thick. Then from the crowd, a voice spoke. "Let her show." It was Admiral Vorlak, the same one who had hunted her before, but his voice was different. Softer. Zara stepped forward and placed the sapling in the center of the circle. She sang the lullaby her mother taught her, and the tree responded, its light spreading like ripples in water, touching every person in the circle. For a moment the Emperor's mask slipped and Zara saw not a tyrant, but a tired man who had lost too much to count. When the light faded, he said nothing for a long time. Then he turned and walked away, but he did not order her arrested. The summit ended without agreement, but something had shifted. The Empire did not attack the Veil again. Not with ships, not with spies. Back on Station Echo, the people waited. Not with weapons, but with open arms. Zara and Claire stepped off the dusk wing to cheers, not for victory but for courage. That night they sat in the garden, the sky tree now planted in the heart of the station, its roots weaving through the metal like veins of light. "You think we changed anything?" Claire asked. Zara watched a child place a hand on the trunk and giggle as the leaves shimmered in response. "I think we reminded them that they could choose, and that's enough, for now." Yes. They sat in silence as the stars turned above two women from different worlds who had built a bridge not with steel but with song. And in that quiet moment the universe felt less cold, less lonely, less broken, because somewhere in the dark kindness had taken root and begun to grow. The nebula wrapped around the dusk wing like a cloak of violet and gold, gas swirling in slow motion as if time itself had softened inside its embrace. Zara sat in the neural throne, eyes closed, listening to the ship's quiet hum, while Claire ran diagnostics from the human console, her fingers tapping keys with practiced ease. They had escaped the destroyers, but both knew it was only a pause. "Not an end. We can't stay here long," Claire said. "The nebula's interference is masking us now. But once the Empire sends scouts with deep scan arrays, they'll find." Zara opened her eyes. "I know. So where next?" Zara stood and walked to the star chart projected on the main screen, her silver gaze tracing routes through dead zones and forgotten systems. "There is a place called the Veil, a cluster of rogue planets drifting between galaxies. No empire claims it. No laws bind it. Only outcasts, dreamers, and those who refuse to kneel." "Sounds perfect." Claire grinned. "But it is dangerous." Zara added, "The journey will take weeks with no resupply, no safe ports, and if the ship fails again, we will not survive." Claire met her gaze. "Then we make sure it doesn't fail." They spent the next 2 days preparing, sealing every leak, reinforcing power, couplings, and rationing food and water. Claire taught Zara how to jury-rig a water recycler using spare coolant lines and a filtration pad from her freighter, while Zara showed Claire how to read Kalian energy signatures so she could spot hidden threats and sensor noises. They worked. They talked more deeply than before. Zara spoke of her childhood in the crystal spires of Kael, where royal children were tested, not with toys but with logic. Puzzles meant to break weaker minds. She remembered crying once after failing a test and being told tears were a flaw. Claire listened quietly, then said, "Maybe your tears were the first sign you were more than they wanted you to be." Claire shared her own past growing up on Mars Colony 7, where her father fixed mining rigs, and her mother grew tomatoes in hydroponic trays under red suns. She learned to weld before she learned to dance, and once rebuilt an entire shuttle engine with parts from a broken toaster. "You humans build hope out of scraps," Zara said one night. As they ate rehydrated beans, "We have to." Claire replied, "When you've got nothing else, you make something from what's left." On the third day, they left the nebula, the stars snapping back into sharp focus like needles against black velvet. The ship felt alive beneath them, steady and strong. They set course for the Veil, navigating by ancient star maps Zara had memorized as a child. For 10 days, nothing happened, just the quiet rhythm of space and the soft sounds of two women learning to trust each other completely. They took shifts, sleeping in the same small cabin. Claire on the fold-out cot. Zara curled in a meditation pod that glowed faintly blue. They shared stories, dreams, and silence. Then on the 11th day, the sensors screamed, a distress signal, weak and broken, pulsed from a nearby asteroid field. It was not Kalian, not human, but something else, raw and desperate. "We should ignore it," Claire said, frowning. "It could be a trap." Zara hesitated, her hand hovering over the comms. "But what if it is real?" Claire sighed. "Then we check it out, but carefully." They approached the asteroid field slowly, the Duskwing weaving between tumbling rocks, some as big as cities, others no larger than a hand. The signal led them to a half-buried wreck, its hull blackened and strange-shaped like a twisted seashell. "That's not any ship I've ever seen," Claire whispered. "Neither have I," Zara said. They docked and stepped inside. The air was stale and cold. Lights flickered in broken patterns along the walls. The interior was organic, almost grown rather than built. Walls, curved like bone floors, pulsed faintly with residual energy. In the center of the main chamber, they found Hera Woman lay curled on the floor, her skin pale blue, her hair white as moonlight. She wore a suit woven from living fibers that shimmered with each shallow breath. Her eyes fluttered open when they neared. "Help," she whispered, her voice like wind through glass. Claire knelt beside her, checking her pulse while Zara scanned the room. For threats, the woman's ship was dead, its core drained, its systems failing. "What happened?" Claire asked gently. "The Empire came," she said, her voice trembling. "They took my people. They left me to die because I refused to give them the seed." The seed, she touched her chest. A small glowing pod rested there, pulsing softly. "It is the heart of my world, the last of the sky trees. Without it, my people have no home." Zara recognized the look in the woman's eyes. It was the same look she had seen in Lily's eyes, the same look she now saw in Claire's. It was the look of someone who chose to protect instead of destroy. "We'll get you out of here," Claire said. They carried her back to the Duskwing, Claire working fast to stabilize her in the med bay while Zara rerouted power to life support. The woman's name was Nyla, and she was from a world called Ilaris, a place the Kalian Empire had marked for harvest. Because its sky trees produced a rare energy crystal the Empire craved, they wanted to burn the forest to get to the roots, Nyla said weakly. "But the trees are alive, they sing to us, they give us air and light and memory." Zara sat beside her bed. "I understand." Nyla looked at her. "Really? I was taught that strength meant control, that mercy was weakness. But I was wrong." Nyla smiled faintly. "Then you are ready to carry the seed." Zara froze. "What?" "The seed chooses its guardian. It has been waiting for someone who sees life not as a resource but as a gift. It has chosen you." Before Zara could protest, Nyla pressed the glowing pod into her hands. Warmth spread through Zara's fingers and a soft hum filled her mind. Not words, but feelings. Peace, connection. Purpose. Claire watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. That night, Zara stood alone, on the observation deck, the seed resting in a cradle of woven light beside her. Claire joined her, holding 2 mugs of hot tea. "You okay?" she asked. "I do not know." Zara said, "This seed is more than a plant. It is a world's soul. And now it is mine too." Protect. Claire sipped her tea. "Then you're not alone, remember?" Zara looked at her. "You do not have to stay. You have a life on Earth, a home. Earth's just dirt without people worth fighting for," Claire said. "And you're worth fighting for." Zara felt something warm bloom in her chest, something she had no name for yet. The next morning, Nyla was gone, only a note remained. "Thank you for the song you gave back to the stars." They buried the note in the ship's memory core and set course again for the Veil, but now with a new weight and a new hope. 3 days later, the Empire found them, not with destroyers this time, but with hunters, silent ships shaped like blades that cut through space without sound. They surrounded the Duskwing before Zara could react. "Surrender the seed, traitor," came a cold voice over comms, "or we will burn your ship with you inside." Zara's hands clenched, but Claire placed a hand on her arm. "Wait." Claire opened a channel, not to the hunters, but to every open frequency nearby. Then she played Lily's piano song again, the same melody that had started it all. But this time something changed. The seed in its cradle began to glow brighter, its hum syncing with the music, and then the ship itself began to resonate. The walls shimmered, the lights pulsed, and the hunters' comms filled with static. "What's happening?" Zara asked. "I don't know," Claire said. "But go with it." Zara closed her eyes and let the ship speak through her. Not as a weapon, but as a voice, the Duskwing released a wave of pure harmonic energy, not destructive but revealing. It showed the hunters not data but memory. The memory of a child playing piano, the memory of Nyla's sky trees, the memory of oceans and twin suns and quiet mornings. For the first time the hunters hesitated. One ship broke formation, its lights flickering, then it turned and fled. The others followed, confused, their rigid programming unable to process. Empathy, silence, returned. Claire let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. Did that really just happen? Zara looked at the seed, now glowing with steady light. Yes, because some truths cannot be fought, only felt. They reached the Veil. 2 weeks later, it was not a place of war, but of quiet rebellion. Ships of all shapes and sizes floated in loose formation around a cluster of dark planets. No flags, no armies, just people who had chosen freedom over fear. As the Duskwing entered the zone, 100 comms channels opened. Not with threats, but with greetings. "Welcome, stranger," came a voice rough but kind. "This is neutral ground." Zara opened a channel. "This is Princess Zara of House Kyle. I come not to conquer but to join." A pause, then laughter, warm and real. "You're the one who spared the Orion shippy. Is then you're already one of us?" They docked at a station built from salvaged hulls and old freighters, its corridors filled with beings of every shape and color. Claire walked beside Zara, her hand resting lightly on her arm. Not as a guard, but as a friend. Here they found others like them, a former Kalian medic who healed with sound, a human botanist growing alien flowers in recycled air, a pilot who flew with prosthetic wings and told stories of lost galaxies. That night they gathered around a fire made of plasma, and memory and Zara held the seed high, its light mingling with the stars. "This is not the end," she said, "it is the beginning." And as the fire burned and the stars watched silently above, 2 women stood side by side, not as alien and human, but as partners, in a new kind of future, one built not on power, but on the simple, brave act of choosing kindness again and again, even when the universe demanded war. Months passed in the Veil, and the quiet grew stronger. Not the silence of emptiness, but the calm of trust. Shared meals filled the mess halls. Laughter echoed through corridors once cold with fear. And the sky tree stood tall in the central garden, its blue leaves shimmering with a light that seemed to pulse in time with the station's heartbeat. Zara and Claire moved through their days like 2 notes in the same song, neither leading, neither following, just moving together. Zara taught children, from a dozen species, the old Kalian stories, not of war but of stars that sang and rivers that remembered names. Claire ran repair workshops where humans, Kalians and others worked side by side fixing engines with scrap and stubborn hope. They no longer saw aliens only neighbors, but peace as never still a faint signal arrived one morning. Not from the Empire, but from deep in uncharted space. It was broken, fragmented, but carried a familiar melody. Lily's piano song, the same tune that had changed everything years ago. Claire played it back. Her brow furrowed. This isn't Lily. Zara listened closely. The notes were the same, but the rhythm was off, like someone trying to copy a memory. They barely held. Who would do that? Someone who needs help, Zara said. They debated telling the council. But something in the signal felt personal, like a hand reaching through the dark. Just for them. We go alone, Claire said. If it's a trap, we don't risk the veil. Zara agreed. They prepped the Duskwing, quietly loading extra rations and medical supplies. Claire checked every weld on the hull while Zara synced the neural interface until it hummed like a second breath. They left at dawn station time, the sky tree glowing softly as if in farewell. Signal led them beyond the known rim, past dead stars and silent comets, into a region marked only as the hollow zone on old maps. No ships went there, not even scavengers. The space felt empty, not just of matter but of echo, as if sound itself had been swallowed. On the third day they found it. A small habitat module floated alone, its hull patched with foil and wire. Its solar panels cracked but still turning toward a distant sun. It looked like something built by hands that had nothing but refused to give up. They docked carefully. Claire in her suit. Zara behind her. The airlock cycled with a groan, and inside they found a girl. She was maybe 15, with dark skin and eyes too old for her face. She sat at a console, her fingers dancing over keys that barely worked. A small keyboard sat beside her, covered in dusty. "You're real," she whispered. "Who are you?" Zara asked gently. "My name is Maya. I was on the Orion colony ship, the one you spared." Claire stepped forward. "Lily's sister." Maya nodded. "Lily didn't make it past the first winter on the new world. She got sick. But before she died, she taught me the song. She said if I ever needed help, I should play it." Someone would come. Zara felt a sharp ache in her chest. Maya stood and walked to a back room. There on a table sat rows of seedlings, tiny green shoots in recycled cups. "This is what Lily wanted to grow," she said. "Earth plants in alien soil. She believed if we could share life, we wouldn't need to fight. But the Empire found us. Again, they took the colony. They burned the fields. I escaped in this pod with the seeds and the keyboard." Claire knelt beside the table, her voice thick. "They're still hunting dreamers." Zara looked at Maya. "You are not alone now." They brought Maya back to the Veil. The station welcomed her not as a refugee, but as a keeper of memory. She planted Lily's seeds in a new greenhouse beside the sky tree and taught others how to play the piano. Not for war, but for healing. But the Empire's reach was longer than they thought. A week after Maya's arrival, a Kalian freighter docked, claiming to carry medical supplies for a sick child aboard. Station Echo Protocol demanded they be allowed to unload, but the sensor vines turned deep red and the Skytree's hum grew sharp. Zara and Claire watched from the security hub as the freighter's crew moved too smoothly, too quietly. "They're not here for medicine," Claire said. "No," Zara replied, "they're here for Maya." The Empire had traced the signal. They knew Lily's sister was alive, and they wanted to erase the last witness to their failure. That night, Zara called a meeting. Not in the hub, but in the garden under the sky tree's glow. "They will come for her," she said. "And if we hide her, we admit fear. If we fight them, we become what they expect. So what do we do?" Torrin asked. "We give them a choice," Zara said. They prepared not with weapons, but with truth. Maya's greenhouse was open to all, the piano placed in the center, the seedlings labeled with Lily's notes about soil, light, and hope. Every corridor displayed images of the burned colony. Not to shame, but to remember. When the Imperial officers arrived, led by a cold-eyed commander named Dre, they expected resistance. Instead, they found an open door. "Enter," the commander said, suspicious. They stepped inside. Children played among the plants. A Kalian elder taught a human boy how to braid vines for support beams, and in the center Maya sat at the piano playing Lily's song. Dre froze. "This is a trick," he said. "No," Zara stepped forward. "This is what you destroyed and what we rebuilt." Dre's hand hovered near his sidearm, but his eyes stayed on Maya. She stopped playing and looked at him. My sister believed people could change even you. His jaw tightened. Claire spoke softly. We're not hiding her. You can take her if you want, but you'll have to drag her through a garden full of witnesses who will tell the whole sector what you did. Dre looked around at the faces watching him, not with anger but with pity, and that was worse. He turned and left without another word. His ship departed within the hour. Afterward, Maya asked why they didn't run. Because running teaches them they can chase, Zara said. Staying teaches them they must face what they've done. Life in the Vale deepened after that. The sky tree grew taller, its roots now woven into the station's structure, its light bright enough to read by. At night, Maya's earth plants thrived too. Tomatoes, carrots, and sunflowers that turned their faces toward artificial suns. Children from all species learned to play piano and plant seeds side by side. Zara and Claire spent more time in the quiet moments, walking the outer rings, watching stars, or sharing tea in the dim light of the Duskwing's cabin dough. You ever wonder what would have happened if you'd fired that day? Claire asked one evening. Zara looked at her. Then, I would not be here with you, Claire smiled. Neither would it. They knew the Empire still watched, still waited. But something had shifted. The Vale was no longer just a hiding place, it was a beacon, and more ships came. Not in fear, but in hope. One day, a message arrived. Not from the Emperor, but from a group of Kalian scientists. They had defected with data on a new energy source, clean, endless, and shared. They asked only for a place to work and a chance to heal what they had helped break. Zara welcomed them. The Vale was changing from a refuge into something new. A home built, not on what was lost, but on what could be grown. On the anniversary of the day Zara spared the Orion ship, the station held a gathering. Not a celebration, but a promise. Zara stood before the crowd. Maya beside her, Claire at her back. We began with a song, she said, and we continue. With seeds, with stories, with hands that choose to build instead of break. Maya's played the piano. The sky tree glowed, and for the first time in generations, Kalians and humans stood not as enemies, not as strangers, but as partners in a future they were making together. That night, as Zara and Claire walked back to the Duskwing hand in hand, the stars above seemed closer, brighter, as if leaning in to listen. And somewhere far away in the heart of the Empire, a young officer played a broken piano in his quarters and wondered if there was still time to change. The Vale did not end war that night, but it planted the first true seed of peace. And in the quiet dark of space, that was enough. The Vale had grown beyond what anyone imagined. It was no longer just a station, but a web of habitats, gardens, and ships, all linked by shared purpose, and the quiet hum of the sky tree whose roots now spread through 3 connected modules, its light, a steady pulse in the heart of the community. Zara and Claire moved through it not as leaders but as threads in a larger weave, always present, always listening. But change came not with a bang, but with a whisper. A new signal arrived one morning, not broken, not hidden, but clear and calm. It came from the Kalian homeworld itself, and it carried the voice of someone. No one expected the young heir to the throne, Prince Kalan, the same infiltrator who had defected years ago. I speak not for the Empire, he said, but for those who wish to leave it behind. He asked for a meeting, not in secret, but in open space near the Vale's edge. No weapons, no escorts. Just one small ship and one request. Zara listened to the message 3 times before speaking. He could be testing us, Claire said. Arms crossed, but her eyes held hope. Or he could be the first crack in the wall. Zara replied. They agreed to meet. The rendezvous point was a quiet stretch of space near a dead comet, its surface glittering with ancient ice. Prince Kalan's ship was small and unarmed, its hull painted not in imperial red but in soft silver like moonlight. He stepped aboard the Duskwing alone, wearing simple clothes. No insignia, no armor. Just a young man with tired eyes and a data crystal in his hand. You came, Zara said. I had to, he replied. The Empire is dying. Not from outside force, but from within. It eats itself with fear and control. But there are many like me who remember what we once were before the war. She handed her the crystal. Inside were plans not for weapons but for a network of peace enclaves hidden across Kalian space schools. Farms, healing centers, all built in secret by those who refuse to fight. They need protection. He said, not from you, but with you. Zara looked at Claire, who nodded slowly. The Vale cannot become a shield for rebels, Zara said. But it can be a home for those who choose peace. That is all we ask. They brought Kalen to the station not as a prince but as a guest. He walked the gardens, touched the sky tree, and sat with Maya as she played Lily's song. His eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of recognition. Over the next weeks, more ships came, not warships but transports, carrying families, teachers, healers, all bearing the same quiet courage. They brought seeds, books, and stories and asked only for a place to belong. The veil expanded again. New modules bloomed like flowers in the dark, and the sky tree's light grew stronger, as if feeding on the hope around it. But the old empire did not vanish quietly. Admiral Vorlak, now retired but still respected, sent a private message not to Zara but to Claire. "You think you have won?" he wrote. "But empires do not fall because of kindness. They fall because of weakness. You have made them." Soft Claire showed it to Zara, who read it once then deleted it. "He is afraid," Zara said, "not of us, but of what we remind him he could have been still." The warning lingered. Then came the storm. A massive energy surge rippled through the sector, not from weapons but from the Kalian core world itself. The Emperor had activated the Starfire Forge, an ancient weapon that drew power from the planet's core to burn entire systems clean of life. It had not been used in centuries, but now it pulsed with deadly light aimed not at the Veil but at a rebel enclave near the rim. "They will kill thousands." Zara said, "We can't stop it." Claire replied, "It's too far, too fast, unless we show them. They are not alone." Zara made a choice. She opened every comms channel. The Veil had and broadcast not a threat but a memory. She played Lily's song, Maya's voice singing Kalian lullabies, children laughing in the gardens, the hum of the sky tree, the sound of hands planting seeds in shared soil, and she sent it straight into the heart of the Empire, not as an attack but as a mirror. On the Kalian homeworld, the broadcast flooded public channels, private homes, even military barracks. People stopped what they were doing and listened. In the command center, the Emperor stood before the Starfire console, his finger hovering over the final trigger. Then a technician spoke. "Sir, the Forge's harmonic resonance is syncing with the broadcast. What the weapon uses the same frequency as the sky tree's hum. The broadcast is not interfering. It is amplifying." The Emperor stared at the screen as the Forge's energy began to shift, not into a beam of destruction, but into a wave of light that spread gently across the target system, not burning, but illuminating, revealing hidden shelters, rebel farms, and families huddled together. The weapon had become a lantern. He lowered his hand. The forge shut down. Silence fell across the Empire. Back in the Veil, no one cheered, they simply held each other and wept. Prince Kalen returned. Days later, not alone but with a delegation of elder scientists and former soldiers. They carried no weapons, only a charter signed in light and blood, a formal request to join the Veil. Not as refugees but as partners, Zara accepted. The ceremony was held in the central garden under the sky tree, now tall enough to brush the ceiling, its leaves casting patterns like constellations on the floor. Zara stood with Claire on one side and Maya on the other. Prince Kalen faced them, his voice clear. "We renounce war not because we were defeated but because we remembered what we lost." Zara took his hand and placed it on the tree's trunk. "Feel it," she said. "This is not power. It is life." He closed his eyes and nodded. Afterward, as the station celebrated, with music and shared food, Zara and Claire walked to the outer ring, the gas giant glowing in the distance. "Do you think it's over?" Claire asked. "No," Zara said. "But the war is no longer the loudest voice." They stood in silence, watching the stars months. Later, the first joint project began. Not a ship, not a weapon, but a school built on a reclaimed asteroid, halfway between the Veil and the old Empire. It taught children from all species to grow food, fix engines, and play music. The sky tree's seeds were planted in its courtyard, and Lily's piano sat in the main hall. Zara visited often, teaching history not as a list of battles but as a chain of choices. Claire stayed on the station, running the engineering guild, training a new generation to build not break. And Maya traveled between worlds, playing her sister's song wherever hope needed a voice. One evening, as Zara sat in the Duskwing's cockpit reviewing star charts, Claire entered, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Remember when we thought this was just about survival?" she said. Zara smiled now. "It's about legacy. They sipped their tea in comfortable silence, the ship humming softly around them. Outside, the veil continued to grow not through conquest but through invitation. Every new arrival added a thread to the tapestry. Every shared meal, every planted seed, every song played in the dark made the whole stronger. And though the universe was still vast and sometimes cruel, it no longer felt empty, because somewhere in the quiet between stars, two women had chosen kindness, and in doing so had given the galaxy a new kind of gravity, one that pulled not with force, but with hope. The end was not a single moment, but 1,000 small ones. A child learning to play piano, a farmer harvesting alien tomatoes, a former soldier teaching peace instead of war. And in each of those moments, the sky tree's light grew brighter, not because it demanded attention, but because it was tended with Karazara. And Claire never claimed victory. They simply lived it every day in every choice to listen, to build, to stay, and that was enough.